Earth is home to over 300,000 distinct plant species. Left to their own devices, they grow in a fierce, chaotic competition for survival. That raw biological chaos is completely incompatible with large-scale food production. We cannot build reliable food systems on unpredictable growth. To cultivate this wild biology effectively, agricultural scientists have to impose order. We do that through strict classification. Organizing these species means understanding their specific growth habits, their resource requirements, and exactly how they need to be managed. Taxonomy provides the foundational blueprint. It is the tool that transforms wild plant behaviors into manageable, reliable agricultural systems. Depending on their specific characteristics and what we ultimately want to get out of them, crops can be categorized using a few different criteria. Agricultural science relies on three primary approaches to classification: life cycle, uses, and botanical traits. Organizing by uses means categorizing plants by their economic output, whether they are food crops, industrial materials, or horticultural products. The botanical approach classifies them by physical structure, sorting them into deep biological categories like monocots versus dicots. But the most critical factor for day-to-day farm management is the plant's life cycle. This pillar dictates time. Before a farmer can plant a single seed, they have to understand the biological clock of that specific crop. Let's start with annual crops. These are plants that complete their growth and production cycle within a single year. Looking at this diagram of annuals on the left, you see a rapid biological sequence: quick germination, vegetative growth, flowering, and fruit production. Once harvested, the plant dies. Therefore, every single production cycle requires starting completely over from seeds. Maize is a primary example of this rapid timeline, completing its entire life cycle in just 90 to 120 days. Paddy, or rice, operates on a similar schedule. Depending on the variety, it finishes its cycle in 125 to 135 days, and horticultural crops like chilies follow this exact same fast-growing annual rhythm. Because these crops die after a few months, fields must be continually cleared, tilled, and replanted multiple times a year. The labor requirement is massive, but annuals provide immediate food security and rapid economic returns. Next are biennial crops. The center chart illustrates their 2-year cycle. In year 1, biennials focus on vegetative growth, storing dense food reserves in their roots. During year 2, the plant uses those reserves to produce flowers and seeds before finally dying. But here is where agricultural practice diverges from pure botany. Commercially, farmers almost never let biennials reach their second year. Crops like carrots and cabbages are intentionally harvested at the very end of year 1. We sever the timeline to capture that maximum stored energy for human consumption before the plant uses it to flower. Managing biennials requires strategic interruption. We actively prevent the plant from fulfilling its biological reproductive destiny. Finally, perennials. As shown on the right, these crops live for more than 2 years. They begin with a long establishment phase, requiring heavy resources but yielding zero crop. Once established, they provide repeated harvests for decades without replanting. In Malaysia, the rubber tree is a classic historical example of a long-term perennial plantation crop. Today, the oil palm serves as another massive perennial economic driver, one that dictates how vast tracts of land are used over long periods. Planting a perennial is a generational commitment. It sacrifices the short-term agility of annuals in exchange for long-term, stable economic output. However, agricultural practice does not always perfectly mirror a plant's strict botanical classification. To maximize efficiency and commercial yields, we deliberately manage certain biological perennials as if they were short-cycle crops. The pineapple is a botanical perennial, yet commercially it is managed on an intense 12 to 18-month cycle. After harvest, the field is cleared and replanted entirely to ensure the next batch meets strict quality standards. Sugarcane, a massive perennial grass, introduces a different management technique entirely. Growers manage it using a process called retuning, which involves cutting the above-ground crop while leaving the perennial root system intact to generate next season's growth. Biology provides the baseline rules for how a plant operates, but human agricultural ingenuity bends those timelines to optimize commercial reality. When we step back and compare these two dominant agricultural systems side by side, we see how life cycle choices dictate an entire farming strategy. The core strength of annual crops is extreme agility. They generate fast food production and a quick turnaround on income. This rapid cycle allows farmers to pivot quickly, rotating crops season by season to adapt to market prices or protect soil health. The core strength of perennials is extreme stability. These are bulk export commodities, providing steady, predictable income spanning decades. Perennials also offer distinct environmental benefits. Because their root systems remain undisturbed for years, they provide sustained soil retention and long-term carbon storage. Understanding a crop's life cycle is the mandatory first step in agriculture. The plant's biology dictates the blueprint, but it is the agriculturalist who must apply that blueprint to feed the world.